A headline story today coming to you from Morgan from the Women's Safety Initiative on X. Pardon me for a moment. This is from a couple of days ago. She posted this on yesterday afternoon, but this was on August 9th. This incident dates back to Saturday evening outside a KFC in Bridgend in Wales, right? There was I think I might have said that there was, so there was a gang of men. There's a suspect driving a black BMW. It says BMW Volvo, but that doesn't really make sense because they're two different car companies. But it appears to be a black BMW or black Volvo with the registration, ladies and gentlemen, which you can look out for if you happen to live in the area, WL64GYY. That is WL64GYY. A 16-year-old and her friend were targeted and harassed by 3 foreign men in this car. The men initially asked for the girls' phone numbers, and when refused, they continued to harass them. The girls sought refuge in the bathroom, but the men banged on the door, stating that they didn't care about the girls' age. The manager intervened, prompting the men to leave, and advised the girls to wait 30 minutes before exiting through a side door. However, when the girls left, the men pulled up next to their car and resumed the harassment. KFC contacted the police, but it's reported that the police did not respond. That should not surprise you. Should not surprise you whatsoever. In fact, I'm going to read you one of the comments before I carry on with the rest of this that was left on that recent Rill video, which I found quite entertaining that somebody left talking about the police. And this person said, the police service is now full of left-wing brainwashed commie apparatchiks and steroid-pumped failed bouncers and security guards. What could possibly go wrong? Yep. Absolutely. However, I did have to respond because if you've been following this channel for a while with some of the clips that we've looked at and stuff like that, the description of left-wing brainwashed commie apparatchiks is certainly accurate. But steroid-pumped failed bouncers and security guards, not always the most accurate. Because I actually responded with the videos that I've seen. They more often look like limp-wristed, noodly-armed, vitamin D, creatine and protein-deficient basement dweller builds who, if they would be in possession of a functioning moral compass to go off of, could probably benefit from a test injection or two. Now, this person does make some very valid points, especially about the brainwashed commie apparatchik stuff, and you've got to be very careful with the now criminalized attributes, ladies and gentlemen, of observation and common sense in the glorious People's Republic of Wales, okay? Have to be very, very careful. There should be no surprise that the police did not respond in this instance. Should be absolutely not. They don't care. They've got more important things to deal with. An example might be what is coming up in a moment, where they had to evict a schoolgirl who had purchased food inside a McDonald's, but apparently after an argument escalated, the McDonald's decided to pull on the policy of no kids allowed in after 5 p.m. Seems like quite arbitrary policy, but can you imagine if that was the case in this instance, whereby, oh yeah, you have to go out to this gang of foreign men because you're not allowed in here because our policy says so. Seems quite very arbitrary, and it's probably actually going to put a lot of people in danger. I understand, especially with a lot of teens nowadays, a lot of them are troublemakers, a lot of them go out looking for trouble, and a lot of this stuff, and people, they don't get paid enough to deal with half the shit they deal with. I get that, but at the end of the day, this is now turning into a massive safety concern. But at least the police were there for that one. They won't turn up when it's kids being harassed in this way, but if it's kids that may or may not be causing trouble inside a McDonald's, which, by the way, the McDonald's were evidently so keen enough to take her money off her because she was in possession of her food and drink, which later on then when she got arrested got spilled all over the floor. I've got a video coming up for you in a moment of that if you haven't seen it. They were keen enough obviously to take her money off her, and then seemed maybe she was speaking with a bit of an attitude or whatever it might have been. I don't actually know the wider context of the situation, but then she got manhandled into a police car by about 3 or 4 police officers. So this was the original post. The original post reads thusly: an incident happened Saturday night involving my 16-year-old daughter and her friend. They were inside KFC Bridgend, the one across from Sainsbury's, when they noticed 3 foreign men outside watching my daughter. They then went inside and asked for her telephone number, to which she replied she's only 16 and to leave her alone. They continued to harass my daughter, so the girls went into the toilets, where one of the men proceeded to follow and was even banging on the door, saying he doesn't care that she's only 16. Eventually, they leave as the manager intervenes. The men appear to get in their car and leave, so the manager makes sure that the girls are okay, tells them to wait for half an hour or so, then lets them leave through the side door to go to their own car to come home. As the girls are leaving the car park, the men appear from nowhere, pulling up in their car. The girls get out and run back into KFC, terrified. The manager calls the police, but for whatever reason that I'm still yet to fathom, so see, the police I don't think have said anything still up until this point. So this was obviously 3 days ago at this point. No police attended. The car was a black, so it's a black Volvo. It's a black Volvo, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure why it says BMW in Morgan's post. Maybe it's just a bit of a typo. And obviously with X, you can't go back and change something if it goes beyond an hour. At least that's what my settings are anyway. I don't know if you can change them, but that's what it says on mine. If the post goes on, if you leave the post up for an hour, you can't then go back and change it. It's a black Volvo car, registration WL64GYY. What the actual fuck is this world coming to? Please share and make your children aware. This could have been a one-off, but unfortunately, we're hearing of these incidents far too often with nothing being done about it. I'm just so grateful to the manager for helping the girls. And this is indeed a very, very all too common occurrence. All too common occurrence. So you have to be very, very careful in today's world, ladies and gentlemen, especially as under the direction of the Labour government in this country, as has been doing for the last 20, 25, 26 years of devolution, whatever it is, but also through successive Conservative and Labour governments in Westminster, going back to Tony Blair, and even before that, you could trace it back to obviously Clement Attlee if you wanted to. This is becoming more and more of a problem, and it's going to be, even if it's not so much of a problem that you notice in your community now, with the initiatives that are being put in place, with the political initiatives that are being put in place, you will notice this more and more and more. And eventually, no matter how hard your liberal sensibilities are ingrained into your brain at the moment, reality will come crashing down on them like a tsunami. They will not hold up to it. It'll be like a little bit like the sentiment that Dostoevsky talks about in Brothers Karamazov about the realist, where they'd sooner deny reality than admit a truth that they don't want to. Basically, I'm paraphrasing a lot, and I can't remember exactly where it is, because if you've tried reading the Brothers Karamazov, I think I'm about 2/3 of the way through it at the moment. I've let it go for a little while because I've been reading the book that I mentioned before, The Last Girl, because I want to do a bit more of a breakdown on that for some separate content. But it's a great story. It's a great story, but it's a dense read. The audiobook, if you do want to read it and listen to it, by the way, I've often found that reading books and listening to them are a good way to retain a little bit more of the information about them. And especially if they have a really good narrator, it does actually bring the story to life a lot more. On Spotify, at least, the narrator is very good. Is very, very good. I have to say that. But again, this is no surprise from the police. Thank God the manager was able to intervene the way that he or she was able to. And thank God that the girls, at least as far as I know at the moment, are safe. But make no mistake, your girls are not safe. Your girls especially are not safe. And they are prime targets for these predatory men that are coming from predatory cultures a lot of the time. But our government want them in because they want to appease and bring in a foreign voting bloc, like I've said time and time again, to make it so that you can't vote your way out of the initiatives that they want to bring in. They're going to use democracy to get rid of democracy. They're doing that through bringing people in. They're doing that through dissolving the judicial system, making it deliberately two-tier, where, for example, just before we get onto that example of the young girl who was removed from that McDonald's, as I'll get onto in a moment, this is a headline I was going to get onto after that from the Daily Mail. Intoxicated Nigerian man who sexually assaulted a teenager walks free as victim tells court he ruined her life and is now scared to walk alone. This was published today. A Nigerian man who sexually assaulted a young woman next to Bournemouth Beach has avoided jail. Ayomaide Famakinde, 23, was given a community order for sexually assaulting a teenager, ladies and gentlemen, by the judge, who said that the offence was a, quote, momentary aberration. It's not going to be a momentary aberration in the mind of that young girl who now has to deal with this for the rest of her fucking life. And that Famakinde had a difficult life. I'm sorry, that young girl now is going to have a very difficult life from this moment going forward. And I'm sorry, compassion to the criminal is cruelty to the innocent. Compassion to the criminal in this case is cruelty to the innocent. The defendant approached his 19-year-old victim late at night and put his hands down her jogging bottoms. As the 19-year-old tried to fight him off, they fell to the ground together. Famakinde ignored her shouts to stop and carried on until he was pulled off the victim by his friend. The two men walked off together while the teenager was left in tears. Not only the incident there, the big thing, and this is a thing that training jiu-jitsu really taught me as well. Obviously, I'm not speaking for the girl in this instance, but one of the most terrifying things in these scenarios where somebody's a lot more dominant, stronger, whatever it is than you and has the advantage is the feeling of helplessness. That is a real terrifying aspect, whether you're a man or a woman. I can speak to that personally. The feeling of helplessness. Where I've had some training partners, one of them immediately springs to mind where I've trained with them and I can just do nothing and I cannot even get up off the floor. I'm just trying to get up and escape and there's literally nothing I can do and I'm getting tired and exhausted. And it's a little bit like where you see animals in the wild and the animal that has the advantage is just wearing down this other animal. It might be like a tiger versus what's a good animal to go off of, like a deer-like animal that the deer is trying to escape, or you have this big bison that's trying to beat off all of these other animals, and I think it's a leopard. I think it might be a leopard or a tiger that will latch its mouth over the mouth and nose of the other animal, and basically stop it from breathing and suffocate it to death. Is terrifying, and it is a slow. There's no words to describe that fear when it sets in. Right. So even if it's not the case of like you get outright sexually assaulted and stuff like that, that is one thing that jiu-jitsu in particular really makes you appreciate. And why I found one of Paul Golding's statuses on X quite amusing with the recent drama involving Mohammed Hijab and him having to raise £670,000 in a defamation penalty or something. And he was going to challenge somebody to an MMA fight, I think. And Paul Golding pulled up and he said, "Hey, listen, I'll do boxing, I'll do Thai boxing, I'll do any of this stuff, but I won't do any of that gay grappling shit on the floor." I'd be like, I love what Jocko Willink says about it. Again, I've referred to this back time and time again. Is if you're in the street or something like that, and you're good, relatively good fitness and stuff like that, but if somebody's at a distance from you, you have one recourse that at least gets you out of the situation, provided you're obviously quick enough, you're able to run on it, and that is to run away, right? If somebody doesn't have their hands on you, you can still escape by running. In theory, right? It doesn't always work out that way, but you have that option. As soon as somebody grabs you, as soon as somebody grabs your clothing, somebody grabs my shirt, for example, and judo tosses me to the ground and gets on top of me, can't run away anymore. Can't run away anymore. It's a whole different thing to learn how to fight from that environment. But imagine what would have happened if his friend hadn't pulled him off. Pulled him off. And I'm wondering, did the friend see what was going on beforehand? Did the friend see him go up to this woman and start molesting her and just think, oh, well, I'm just going to let that happen. I'm not even going to say anything to him. I'm not going to, say, what the fuck are you doing? This is grossly evil. Again, this is the people that have come into this country, whether they're first generation, whether they're second, whether they're third, made no effort to integrate. And many of them are just going to have to be sent back on a plane home. It's as simple as that. Judge ruled that the offence was a momentary aberration and that the defendant had a very troubled background and difficult life. I'm sorry, a lot of us have very difficult upbringings and stuff like that, but that doesn't justify what happened here. He was given an 18-month community order and ordered to do 150 hours of unpaid work. A custodial sentence was deemed too severe. It makes you think he's just going to be left with that, right? Makes you think, what's this young girl, for example, going to be left with? Like not just a young girl in this instance where she was sexually assaulted. She's now got to deal with the physical, mental, and emotional scars, right? And move past that. And is, as the mother said, is now scared to go out on her own with good reason. Where are the police? Again, well, the police are worried about what you're posting on social media, right? We know that. They're worried about making sure everybody toes the party line like something straight out of 1984. In many instances, we've surpassed 1984 now. I'll have to continue my Wrong Speak series as well. I remembered on my other podcast, I did an audio-only Wrong Speak series, didn't I? I'll have to restart that up as well. So now, as I said, this footage was posted yesterday. in a state that police directly and indirectly facilitate the mass gang rape of young girls by Pakistanis predominantly. Obviously, there's others like, Bangladeshis and other ethnic minorities, and in many ways, British as well. Okay, paedophiles of all nature. Paedophiles of all nature, some more than others, but paedophiles of all nature. In the name of diversity and multiculturalism and restorative justice and compassion for the criminal and cruelty to the innocent, right? This massive demoralization effort. It's hard to imagine something more demoralizing than having 3 or 4 police officers turn up and manhandle you out of a McDonald's after you've just purchased your food. Now, I'm not sure what went on before this. Obviously, the lady, the teenage girl in this instance, is holding her food. She's holding the bags of food with her drink, right, as she's being manhandled to the car. And sadly, she loses the food and it goes all over the floor and her drink does and everything else, right, as she's being manhandled off. So quite clearly, there was a business transaction between her and the McDonald's at one point. It's quite clearly the relationship between her and the staff or whatever it was at least good enough at one point for them to agree to the transaction. So presumably she wasn't threatening any staff. She wasn't making a nuisance of herself. She wasn't hitting people with a wet floor sign that was left out, or cussing at the staff, or again, cussing at people in the establishment, whatever it is. Quite clearly at some point, everything was civil enough for them to take her money off her. But as something has happened, it seems that there's just been a violation of this arbitrary policy where they've said that no kids are allowed in there without adult supervision after 5 p.m. for some reason, right? Bear in mind, again, she seems to be in her mid to late teens. So again, it's not like she's 11 years old and you'd have a child, a missing parent issue or a missing child issue, where it'd be a real child safeguarding issue. It is slightly different. But again, it just seems that it was this violation of this arbitrary policy. And then she had this very embarrassing ordeal of being manhandled out of the restaurant. So here's that video for you now, ladies and gentlemen.
No, you won't throw around.
Now, you could make the case that after the police have been called, that she's resisting arrest. But again, big question is, why is she being arrested? What did she do wrong? Why is this policy in place in McDonald's whereby they just don't allow people they class as kids in the restaurant after 5 p.m.? It makes you think again, if this was their response to this, or why did the police respond to it, and then the police can't respond to a child safeguarding issue where they're being sexually harassed by migrant men in a KFC in Wales, right? What would the McDonald's staff have done if this girl had come in, and reported the incident in the first example that we had? Would they have been as, understanding? Would they have employed this policy in the hardline way that they seem to have in this example, and potentially put them at the peril of these predators? I'm not saying they would have, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying that they would have. But I'm saying it's a question, when you have massive arbitrary policies like this and you enforce them seemingly, as I said, because I don't know all the facts of this situation, and I haven't seen anybody provide more context as to what happened, right? If there was an instance where the teen, for example, was causing a disruption within the restaurant, but again, quite clearly, the relationship between her and the staff and her and the business was good enough to the point where they took her money off her, right? And now she doesn't even get to enjoy what she paid for. Now, when you see all this, ladies and gentlemen, you see blatant police corruption. You see your daughters being sacrificed on the altar of multiculturalism and diversity. You see many instances the police are directly enabling this, and in many instances partaking in the abuse themselves, right? Seemingly, at the very least. People then, when they have instances of this, are going to start fighting back. They're going to get sick and tired of seeing this, and they're going to get sick and tired of seeing people doing nothing about it, especially the police, which are literally paid pretty good money to do this, to make this sacrifice, right? And the police in many instances will now actively show that they are not on the side of the people that they're supposed to protect, and they will actually start hunting people that are trying to protect themselves in their communities. So an incident happened recently, and the way that it was reported in the media was absolutely disgusting, right? First off, you'll see in this article from the news now, the Daily Mail, sorry, and I'm going to play this video in a moment, and you'll see here that the person who is the subject of this video is a man seemingly of some kind of African descent, right? And prior to this, the video doesn't show it. He had exposed himself. I can't find any of the other photos which were circulating around X at the time to show this either, unfortunately. One of them wasn't censored, so I wouldn't show that on screen anyway, but the other one was censored, so I can show you. This guy was quite literally in the middle of the train car where families and kids were around, completely naked, you know, exposing himself. And obviously this is a country where that kind of stuff is no bueno. You know, you might have that kind of stuff being normalized in other countries around the world. That's their fucking business, right? It's not okay here. It's not okay to do that, especially in front of kids. Especially in front of kids, right? But instead now, because there was a ruckus that erupted on the train because of this, and what are now being dubbed as vigilante tube passengers, right, assaulted the man. They assaulted the man, and they tried to make it as though the man was having a mental health break and stuff like that. But we see so many instances of this that excuse isn't going to fly in many ways. They are now potentially facing arrest and police hunt for dealing with this problem themselves. So here is the video that I wanted to show you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just waiting for it to load so I can bring it up on screen for you. And what you'll see is, and this is my critique of the media again, especially the mainstream media outlets, is you'll see on this video, the Mail have pixelated, put a pixel filter over the face of the person who exposed himself. They haven't put any other pixelation in order to anonymize the person to anyone else in the frame. To anyone else in the frame, seemingly. I believe aside from one lady that comes in later. But the so-called tube vigilantes, they have to have their faces exposed. But the man who is exposing himself on the tube is the person that the Mail, I'm assuming the Mail, but at least in this video, whoever made this video, which, again, it's on the Mail website, so I'm assuming the Mail made it. It has their watermark on it. They chose to keep his identity anonymous, and they chose to, in many ways, by omission in this instance, by not pixelating their faces, dox the people that did this, which is truly disgusting. They tried to dox people who want to protect their communities. So just bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm bringing this up on screen for you now. Just bear with me. So here we go.
Thank you so much. Give my phone. Mate, can you hear me? What about you? What you got to do? I'm still.
So there you go. So that's what happened. That's the aftermath, right? It obviously doesn't show you, and the Mail didn't show you any of the photos that were circulating beforehand either, that, you know, really showed this guy exposing himself in the way that he did. So I'll read on a little bit for you now. Commuters who took the law into their own hands when a tube passenger dropped his trousers in a packed London Underground carriage could face arrest. The British Transport Police believe the naked man, who has since been detained under the Mental Health Act, was assaulted on the District line in East London. Up to 4 men stepped in when he repeatedly refused to pull up his pants at 3:30 p.m. last Thursday. He was pinned to the floor and carried off the train before being arrested by an off-duty police officer. But detectives are probing whether the vigilantes committed any criminal offences in the confrontation after he refused to pull up his pants. So this is the photo. That's the photo. So here it is again, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the photos that I am referring to when I say I think it's quite disgusting that the media, in this instance, would hide the face of one guy, one of the people that were protecting the people on the train and protecting his fellow people and children that were on there, and the perpetrator that refused to not expose himself in front of the train users and in front of children, like I said. So this is the state that we're in now. And you wonder why faith in the police is at an all-time low. You wonder why now people are so sick and tired, they're taking matters into their own hands because they know that the police won't do anything. This is very similar to the incident we saw a little while ago with Daniel Penny in New York, where Daniel Penny restrained, what was his name? Was his name Jordan Neely? I think his name was Jordan Neely, a drug addict that was threatening people on the train. And he stood up, he put him in a restraint. I think he choked him unconscious, and then I believe Jordan Neely went to some other kind of medical condition, but he actually had a pulse at the time. I covered a couple of videos that come out afterwards. Daniel Penny was wrongly arrested, and they believe they tried to charge him with murder. Eventually, he was exonerated for protecting people on the train, for protecting people on the New York City Underground. And that's why I said in response to seeing that this is what our police were now engaged in, that they wanted to persecute the people that were protecting their fellow people on the train, that we are all Daniel Penny now. This is the responsibility that we have been given. We don't like it. But especially as men, even though we won't get any, they are getting a lot of thanks for it. But in a not so long age ago, a lot of the women that likely would have been praising the men doing this now would have called them everything under the sun before, back before a lot of us had our eyes open, so to speak. But we are all Daniel Penny now, especially as men. This is what we've been charged with. Because the people that are actually paid to do this receive fat paychecks and fat pensions, right? No matter other benefits to do it. They won't do it. Too politicized now. They're too politicized. They've been turned into a British equivalent of the Stasi. Where it's not the crime that's taking place that's the problem. It's obviously people getting angry about it and wanting to solve it. And a lot of them, they're just not going to like it because they feel now as though they've been exposed more and more and more. They feel as though they've been exposed more and more and more for their incompetence, and in many instances for their outright malice, because if they were doing their jobs properly, people wouldn't need to intervene in this way. If we had a functioning political system, and a political system that put the country and its people first, this incident wouldn't have even taken place.